The holographic message flickered to life in the emergency session of the United Nations Security Council, its crystalline form speaking in perfect English, despite originating from a star system 47 light-years away. Ambassador Veltar of the Kelith Confederacy stood 8 feet tall, her chitinous exoskeleton gleaming with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in rhythm with her words. "Greetings, humans of Earth," she began, her voice carrying harmonics that made the translation. Software strain. "We extend an invitation to join our most prestigious institution, the Kelith Academy of Warfare. Your species has achieved faster than light travel, a milestone that grants you access to our cultural exchange program." Secretary General Martinez leaned forward, his weathered face creasing with concern. "What exactly does this academy teach?" "Survival," Veltar replied simply. "The galaxy is vast and hostile. We prepare warriors for the reality that awaits beyond your world's protective embrace. Our training facility, the Mortalis Engine, creates perfect simulations of the universe's most dangerous environments. Those who emerge are legends among their people." The chamber erupted in whispered conversations. Defense Minister Chun Wei spoke first. "What's the success rate?" "Survival stands at 0.3%, Veltar stated matter-of-factly. "But those who live become living gods of war. Your finest warriors would be honored to test themselves against our trials." Dr. Sarah Kim, the mission's xenobiologist, studied the aliens' facial expressions, or what passed for them. Something in Veltar's posture suggested this was more than a simple invitation. It felt like a test, perhaps even a warning. Within hours, the selection process began. The Kelith had requested 50 humans, representing Earth's peak specimens. The military contributed Delta Force operatives, Navy SEALs, and elite special forces from 12 nations. Extreme sports athletes arrived next, free climbers, deep-sea divers, and polar explorers whose hobbies involved regularly cheating death. But the real surprise came from the civilian lottery. Public interest had been so intense that the UN decided to include 10 randomly selected volunteers. These were the wild cards: Maria Santos, a kindergarten teacher from rural Nebraska; Bob Fletcher, a retired plumber from Detroit; Amy Chun, a 16-year-old competitive gamer from Seoul; Dr. James Okafor, a pediatrician from Lagos; and 6 others whose qualifications seemed laughably inadequate compared to their military counterparts. Colonel Marcus Reynolds, the mission's military commander, watched the motley crew assemble at the launch facility. The civilians looked nervous but excited, like tourists boarding a cruise ship. The professionals remained stoic, though even they seemed unsettled by the 0.3% survival rate. "Are you sure about this?" Reynolds asked Dr. Kim privately. She shrugged. "The Kelith specifically requested a representative sample. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? According to their statistics, we're all probably dead anyway." The transport ship Endeavour lifted off 12 hours later, carrying 50 humans toward a fate that would reshape both species. Understanding of survival itself. The Kelith Academy hung in the void like a metallic cathedral, its surface pulsing with the same bioluminescent patterns that adorned its creators. Docking tubes extended to welcome the human transport, and the delegation found themselves walking through corridors that seemed to breathe around them. Veltar met them at the entrance, accompanied by a dozen other Kelith observers. Their excited chittering filled the air as they examined the humans with scientific fascination. "Welcome to your new home," Veltar announced. "You are the first human cohort to attempt the Mortalis engine. Your trials will be broadcast across the Confederacy as a celebration of interspecies cooperation." The humans were led to a massive observation deck overlooking the Academy's central chamber. The Mortalis engine stretched below them, a spherical space the size of a small moon, its walls lined with reality-warping projectors that could simulate any environment imaginable. The trials occur in stages, explained Veltar. Each environment tests different aspects of survival, adaptation, combat, resource management, and psychological resilience. Previous cohorts from the Confederacy's member species have faced volcanic hellscapes, sentient plague worlds, and gravity wells that crush bone to powder. Maria Santos, the kindergarten teacher, raised her hand like one of her students. Excuse me, but do you have any, easier settings? Some of us aren't exactly warriors. The Keleth observers exchanged glances, their bioluminescent patterns flickering in what seemed like amusement. The engine adapts to the participants, Veltar replied. It reads your biological and psychological profiles to create the optimal challenge. Trust in its wisdom. Master Sergeant Kelly O'Brien, a grizzled veteran of 3 wars, stepped forward. What about medical support? Extraction protocols? Death in the simulation is death in reality, Veltar stated. The engine manipulates matter at the quantum level. Everything you experience is real, though contained within the chamber. This is why so few survive. The civilians visibly paled. Amy Chun, the teenage gamer, whispered to her neighbor, "This is like hardcore mode times 1,000. Bob Fletcher, the retired plumber, scratched his gray beard. Well, I've been in worse places. Ever tried fixing a sewer main during a flood? That'll teach you about hostile environments. The Keleth preparations took 3 days. The humans underwent extensive medical scans, psychological profiling, and equipment selection. Each participant could choose from an array of advanced weapons and survival gear, though the Keleth warned that the engine would likely strip away such advantages quickly. On the final night, the humans gathered in their quarters. The military personnel held tactical briefings while the civilians huddled together, sharing stories and fears. Dr. Okafor, the pediatrician, found himself counseling both groups. "We're about to face something designed to kill us," he said quietly. "But we're also representing our entire species. Whatever happens, we face it together." Colonel Reynolds nodded grimly. "The Keleth seem to expect us to fail. Maybe that's their point, to show us how outclassed we are in galactic terms. Or maybe," Maria Santos suggested with surprising steel in her voice, "they're about to learn something about humans they didn't expect." Asterisk, asterisk. The Mortalis engine activated with a sound like reality, tearing at the seams. The 50 humans found themselves standing in a vast ecosystem that defied every law of physics they knew. The sky rained acidic mercury while the ground beneath. Their feet pulsed with a heartbeat that wasn't their own. Twisted trees grew downward from floating islands, their roots dripping with bioluminescent poison that hissed where it touched the organic soil. "Welcome to Keth Moria," Veltar's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. "A world where the ecosystem itself is predatory. Your objective: survive for 72 hours while reaching the extraction point 300 kilometers away." The military personnel immediately began tactical assessments. Colonel Reynolds barked orders, establishing formations and communication protocols. The extreme sports athletes tested the environment's physical properties, discovering that gravity shifted in unpredictable patterns, and the air itself seemed to hunger for organic matter. Meanwhile, the civilians stood in apparent shock. Amy Chun, the teenage gamer, was the first to speak. "This is just like the Mordian wastes from Survival Quest 14. The environment's trying to eat us, which means ... She paused, studying the landscape with sudden intensity. "Which means there has to be a symbiotic counterspecies. A gain engine always creates balance." Bob Fletcher was already moving, his trained eye spotting something the others missed. "See those rock formations? They're not rocks, they're crystallized sap from the trees. And the pattern." He knelt down, running his fingers through the pulsing ground. "This whole place is one organism." The trees, the soil, the atmosphere, it's all connected. Maria Santos watched a group of soldiers struggle with their high-tech equipment as it began dissolving in the acidic rain. In Nebraska, we deal with weather that changes every 5 minutes in soil that's been trying to kill crops for centuries. This is just ... bigger. The first casualties came within hours. The most elite soldiers, trained in Earth's harshest environments, found themselves overwhelmed by the alien ecosystem's impossible physics. The acid rain ate through their protective gear, the gravity shifts left them disoriented, and the predatory plants seemed to anticipate their every move. But the civilians adapted differently. Amy Chun began mapping the environment's patterns, treating it like a complex game system. Bob Fletcher identified the symbiotic relationships that kept the ecosystem stable, using his understanding of interconnected systems to find safe paths. Maria Santos organized the survivors using techniques learned from managing 25 6-year-olds in a confined space. The trees grow down because they're feeding on the floating islands, Bob explained to a group of struggling Navy SEALs. But that means the roots are hollow natural shelter from the acid rain. And see how the bioluminescent poison only drips in certain patterns? It's not random. It's following underground water channels. Dr. Okafor, meanwhile, was studying the environment's effects on human physiology. The gravity shifts aren't trying to kill us, he realized. They're testing our inner ear stability. The ecosystem is learning about us, adapting to our specific biology. Above them, in the observation deck, the Caliph watched in growing confusion. Where their greatest warriors had struggled and died, these humans seemed to be ... figuring it out. The civilians especially appeared to treat the impossible environment as merely another problem to solve. Perhaps the simulation is malfunctioning, suggested one observer. Veltar's bioluminescent patterns flickered with uncertainty. No, the engine is performing perfectly. It's the humans who are ... double quotes. Who are what? Asked her aide. Impossible, Veltar whispered, unable to finish the thought that was forming in her mind. Asterisk by the second day, the pattern was undeniable. The Mortalis engine, designed to break the galaxy's finest warriors, was being systematically dismantled by humans who approached it like a particularly challenging puzzle. Amy Chun had cracked the ecosystem's behavioral algorithm, predicting environmental shifts with 89% accuracy. It's like any other procedural generation system, she explained to the remaining survivors. The engine creates challenges based on our responses, but it's following predictable patterns. Once you understand the underlying code, Bob Fletcher had identified 17 different species within the supposedly single organism, each serving specific ecological functions. His knowledge of interconnected systems learned from decades of urban infrastructure work translated perfectly to alien biology. Everything's connected, just like a city's water system. Break one connection, and the whole thing fails. Maria Santos had established survival protocols that kept the group functioning despite impossible stress. Children are essentially tiny chaos agents, she explained to Colonel Reynolds. Manage them successfully, and you can handle anything. The key is staying calm and thinking 3 steps ahead. The military personnel, humbled by repeated failures, began deferring to the civilians' expertise. The Navy SEALs followed Bob's routing suggestions. The Delta Force operators implemented Maria's organizational strategies. Even the extreme sports athletes acknowledged Amy's superior understanding of environmental patterns. But it was Dr. Okafor who made the most disturbing discovery. While treating injured survivors, he noticed something wrong with the simulation's biological accuracy. The acid rain should be causing specific chemical burns, he told the group. But the patterns don't match any known acidic compounds. It's like the engine is guessing at how acid works. What do you mean? Reynolds asked. I mean this engine, this. Perfect simulation is approximating Earth-based chemistry. It doesn't actually understand how our biology responds to real acid. It's making educated guesses based on incomplete data. The implications hit Amy Chun first. Oh my God, they've never encountered environments like Earth. This engine is trying to simulate Deathworlds, but it's never seen a real one. The realization spread through the group like wildfire. Earth wasn't just another planet. It was the template that the Mortalis engine had been trying to replicate for millennia. The galaxy's greatest civilizations had spent eons creating increasingly deadly simulations, never realizing they were attempting to duplicate conditions that humans considered normal. The gravity shifts, the acid rain, the predatory ecosystem, Bob said slowly. It's just a Tuesday on Earth. Hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, floods, and that's just the weather. Then you've got the animals, the plants, the bacteria, the parasites. The magnetic field reversals, added Dr. Okafor, the cosmic radiation, the tectonic instability. The fact that our entire planet is essentially a molten ball of death covered by a thin layer of barely stable crust. Maria Santos laughed, actually laughed, as the truth sank in. We're not the primitives here. We're the apex predators. We evolved on a world so hostile that it makes their ultimate training simulation look like a nature walk. Above them, Veltar and her observers listened to the humans' conversation through the monitoring system. The ambassador's bioluminescent patterns had gone completely dark, a sign of profound shock among her species. Impossible, she whispered. The engine is perfect. It has created trials that destroy our greatest champions, forge legends from the strongest among us. Ambassador, her aide said quietly, what if their world is actually worse than anything we can imagine? The final day of the trial arrived with a cosmic storm that tore holes in reality itself. The Mortalis engine, pushed to its absolute limits, unleashed its ultimate challenge. A collapsing universe where the laws of physics changed every few seconds, where matter and energy existed in constant flux, and where survival required adaptation to conditions that defied rational thought. The last dozen humans stood in the center of the chaos, watching dimensions fold in on themselves while time moved in loops and spirals. The military personnel had long since acknowledged what the civilians had recognized from the beginning. This was just another Tuesday on Earth, scaled up to galactic proportions. Okay, Amy Chan said, consulting her makeshift notes. Based on the pattern analysis, we've got about 47 seconds before the next physics reversal. Maria, how are we doing on group cohesion? Everyone's stable, Maria replied, checking. On their team with the same calm efficiency she used for playground supervision. Bob, what's our structural situation? Bob Fletcher studied the reality tiers with professional interest. The dimensional fractures are following the same engineering principles as foundation settling. Give me 30 seconds, and I can predict the next collapse point. Dr. Okafor, meanwhile, was monitoring everyone's vital signs. The engine's reality distortions are causing some neural confusion, but nothing worse than what we'd see in severe altitude sickness. We're handling it better than expected. In the observation deck, the Kelith leadership watched in stunned silence as the humans casually navigated conditions that had killed every previous participant within minutes. The cosmic storm, their ultimate test, was being treated like a weather phenomenon. How? Veltar asked, her voice barely audible. Her aide, a young researcher named Kate Hahn, had been studying human historical records. Ambassador, I've been analyzing their planetary data. Their homeworld experiences regular magnetic field reversals, cosmic radiation bombardment, and tectonic instability that would classify as a Class 12 catastrophe under our scale. That's impossible. No complex life could evolve under those conditions, but it did. And more than that, they've documented over 200 extinction events in their planet's history. Species that survived each one by adapting to increasingly hostile conditions. The humans aren't just survivors there, descendants of the ultimate survivors. The truth was becoming unavoidable. The Kelith Confederacy, spanning 12 star systems and thousands of worlds, had spent millennia trying to create training simulations that matched the baseline difficulty of simply existing on Earth. The simulation chamber, the humans reached the extraction point with almost casual efficiency. As the Mortalis engine powered down, they stood in the sudden silence, looking around at the devastation they'd navigated as if it were a minor inconvenience. "That was actually pretty fun," Amy Chun said. "The physics puzzles were challenging, but once you figured out the underlying patterns, reminded me of the winter I had to fix the water mains during that ice storm," Bob added. "At least this time the environment wasn't actively trying to freeze me solid." Maria Santos stretched, working out the kinks in her back. "Well, that was educational. Though I have to say, after managing 25 kindergartners hopped up on birthday cake, a reality-warping death simulation feels almost relaxing." Extraction portal opened, and the humans stepped through to find themselves facing a reception committee of the galaxy's most powerful leaders. The Kelith Confederacy had summoned representatives from all member species to witness what they had assumed would be a noble failure. Instead, they found themselves staring at 12 humans who looked like they just finished a moderately challenging camping trip. Veltar approached slowly, her bioluminescent patterns cycling through expressions of awe, fear, and something approaching reverence. "How?" she asked simply. Colonel Reynolds, speaking for the group, smiled grimly. "Ambassador, I think we need to have a conversation about what you consider a death world, because from where we're standing, your ultimate training simulation felt like a vacation." The implications rippled through the assembled alien leadership. Humanity hadn't just survived their greatest trial, they'd made it look easy. The species they'd invited for cultural exchange weren't primitive newcomers to the galaxy. They were the apex predators of a universe that had been trying to kill them since the day they evolved. As the humans were escorted to what would undoubtedly be very different accommodations than originally planned, Amy Chun turned to her companions with a grin. "So anyone else hoping they have a hard mode?" The end author's note. This story explores the concept that Earth's environmental challenges, from natural disasters to cosmic radiation to the simple hostility of our planet's baseline conditions, might actually represent the most extreme survival scenario the galaxy has ever produced.